Shut that down. Hey, everybody in YouTube, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Glad you could share a few minutes of our time. I need you to check to see if you can hear any of this. So you just, whatever. Okay, having some technical issues again. This is not super promising, but the newest laptop just doesn't seem to be working. So we'll see how everything goes. I want you to check to see if we have sound.
I can't find you.
Because there's two there. One is me and one is you. Go back to where you just were.
You told me to shut that down.
Yes. No. Don't worry about that. Go back to where you were on your phone. Hit the back arrow again. Hit the back arrow. See how there's two?
Scotiabank's banking packages have unique rewards for unique people like you. Whether it's a backpacking honeymoon or a new home with a yoga studio, we want to help you do what you love and get rewards you'll love.
See the one that's live? You just clicked on the wrong one. Say, no. You're just playing a commercial. Now,
apply now for the BMO.
Wait till it says skip or
for more nights out.
You turn it down. What are you laughing about?
I can hear you. You told me to turn it down.
Oh, okay. All right. So we do seem to be working. Okay. So yeah, no, I don't want to hear that. So okay. As I said, the brand new laptop that we just have geared up, got a new hard drive put into it, bought a cam link. I spent about $1,000 on this laptop and bring it up into my office, and lo and behold, it doesn't seem to be working. The last two times that we tried it downstairs in our condo, it worked fine. Tonight it doesn't seem to be working, so I'm just working off of a small webcam. And as long as it works and you guys can hear me, then I guess we're fine. So let's start with a couple of shout outs. We'd like to thank the members to the Armsportvideos channel. I'd like to thank Nicole Miles, Kenny Snow, Joey Thibodeau, and recently just left the channel was Sir Yak Toast. But we appreciate you people becoming members and joining us and supporting the channel. I really do appreciate that. So if you're inclined to help support the channel and become a member, that would be great. Also, a big shout out to Melanie, Cameron, Bethany, and Everly Meisner, who on their way back to St. Catharines, Ontario, came to visit Nova Scotia and shared a week with us. We had a great time spending time with the Meisners at a family cottage, completely off grid. We had no cell service, no power, a little bit of running water, and we had a great time. It was a really nice week to spend with that family, and we had a great time. Also, a big shout out to Joe Fox. Joe, thanks for the kind words on Facebook. I did see the message, and I chose to wait to reply here, but I appreciate those kind words. And look, Joe Fox is a straight up beast in his weight class right now. I don't see anybody in Canada touching him right now, but that's why we have matches, and that's why we look forward to some of these live matches. And anyway, big shout out to Joe Fox. Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Now, there's been a bit of an update to the Armsportvideos schedule. I just accepted another job for August. I thought August was going to be completely blank, but Perry Broom is setting up another Battle Zone event here in Nova Scotia. That's going to be August 26th and 27th. On the Friday night, the 26th, he'll have his Superstar Showdowns. I think when I talked to Perry, it was going to be 4 or 5 challenge matches on the Friday night. And then the Saturday will be a Battle Zone tournament. And we will be there to cover Friday night and Saturday for Perry. Also, after that, September 3rd, we'll be traveling to Toronto. We're going to cover the We the North Armrestling Canada Open, put on by Magda. and that's going to be in Toronto. A bunch of good-looking super matches that Magda has lined up, plus a tournament afterwards, and there's some Nova Scotians traveling as well. We'll be competing at the tournament, not in the super matches, but at the tournament. So we're looking forward to that, and seeing how the Nova Scotia pullers fare up in Ontario. After September 3rd, on October 8th, the plan right now is for me to attend the New England Championships. I'm still waiting to hear from Josh Grant about a venue, and for anybody listening out there, I don't know the area, so just trying to go onto Expedia to find a hotel doesn't really help a whole lot. So if anybody knows a reasonably priced hotel in the Boston area, Woburn, Massachusetts, Saugus, Massachusetts, that's reasonable. I'd appreciate you letting me know. That would be very, very helpful. And Josh, I'm not sure if you're going to be watching live, but hopefully this word gets to you that we're still waiting to hear about a venue. I'd like to attend, but we can't leave it much longer. Also in October 22nd, back here in Nova Scotia, we're going to have Battle of the Atlantic number 22. That's going to take place in Dartmouth. Championship belts will be on the line, and also Rick Pinkney and crew will be holding a tournament as well after the challenge matches. And then from end of October, November 12th, I'm going to be traveling to the Ottawa Open. Eric Roussin is putting on a tournament in Ottawa. So I've talked to Eric, and we've worked out a deal for me to attend the Ottawa Open. So I'm looking forward to that as well. Back in Nova Scotia, November 26th, will be the Nova Scotia Armwrestling Association's annual Superman event. That's where you have to lose 5 times. Going to make for a long day. Great amount of pulling for the pullers, and I've attended a couple in the past, and the pullers really like the fact that they have to lose 5 times, so they get a ton of pulling in. And then, actually, that finishes off the year for me. December, we have nothing booked. I'm really thinking that I'll probably be buried in video and won't be able to take any other bookings. But if you're interested in having me travel to your event, just get in contact me. I'm not looking to make money. I'm just not looking to lose money to travel to somebody's event. But also in the works that isn't on the calendar. Right now, I'm still editing the Canadian Nationals. I have one more left-handed class to do, and then I will be on to the right-hand and left-hand finals. The final right-hand class will air tomorrow. That'll be the 110 plus kilogram men's right hand. Will air tomorrow at 12 o'clock Atlantic, 11 o'clock Eastern time. And then after that, as you may or may not know, I recently traveled over to Prince Edward Island to Tamara Mitz's place. She was having a little get together, and there was some girls only super matches that took place there. I did film them. Have not looked at them yet. I checked to make sure that everything looked okay. Seems to be fine. So I have that to edit. While I was away a week ago yesterday, there was main event number 3. So that's all been filmed, and I still have to get to that video as well to get that edited and out to everybody. And just bear with me. There's a ton of video to get through. And the Canadian Nationals was a huge tournament. I think like 574 entries or something, and I'm slowly but surely getting my way through. There was a little bit of confusion about the footage that was lost, so when I posted some of the clips, there was a comment made that I thought we lost everything from table 2. Okay, so just for clarification, once again, from day 2, table 1, I have no footage. So it's not table 2 or table 3, it's table 1 from day 2 only. So unfortunately, it's the women's classes, and I think there was 2 right-handed men's classes and 2 left-handed men's classes that I have no coverage of at all. So just because there seemed to be confusion in the comments on the video I posted yesterday, it's day 2, table 1 that I have no footage of. So as I said, yes, tomorrow being Monday will be the last right-handed class. and then we'll start the left-handed classes, and that'll give me enough time to get the finals edited, and hopefully in the next week or so we'll be all caught up, and everything from the Canadian Nationals should be posted, and we can move on to the Prince Edward Island footage, and then on to the main event arm wrestling footage. I think that takes care of all the housekeeping things. What do we got here? 5 people in watching us live. Thanks. I appreciate you joining us. A couple of likes. Let's get some more likes up there. Now, what are we going to talk about tonight? Story time is what my producer has been calling this show. And back in 1988, we traveled to the Atlantic Coast Arm Wrestling Championships. So keep in mind that I had just started in arm wrestling as a referee in 1985. Went to my first tournament by the invitation of Rick Pinkney, and sorry, totally lost my train of thought. Got invited by Rick Pinkney to come and help him out at an event he was doing. So traveled with Rick, got hooked. So spent the next couple of years really learning the rules and how to referee, and then rather than be paid for every tournament. Rick and I worked out a deal that Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling, instead of paying me, would just keep the money, and then they bought me a plane ticket and my to the Atlantic Coast Arm Wrestling Championships, and also my hotel room. So it was great. And right now I'm just going to click. I put a link. I'm going to post a link in the chat for the link to the coverage that I have of the 1988 Atlantic Coast Arm Wrestling Championships from Virginia Beach, Virginia. Okay, so let's start. I need a little drink. All this talking making me thirsty. Fangirl1 says, hi, Armsportvideos. Hi, Fangirl1. Thanks for joining us. Southpaw Jinx, you've done such a great job promoting the sport for so many years. Thank you. No, thank you. Appreciate that. Really is truly a labor of love for me. It started off, like I said, as a referee. Started to learn how to arm wrestle, and just as I was beginning to learn how to arm wrestle, got sidetracked with a bit of heart issues. Recovered from my first trip to the hospital and my first issues with my heart, and really started training. I went to training with Rick Pinkney and I. We were training at the gym. When I say the gym, including the gym in his basement. We trained there once a week on just hand and wrist, then would head to the gym, and really trained. I started to get super strong, but still hadn't learned how to arm wrestle really well yet. So just kept at it, trying to get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then by the time Sean Crowther, thank you with the big super chat. Where my producer, oh, there she is with the super chat. Bell, thanks very much, Sean. Super appreciate the support. And Sean, I'd love to get out west again. So work on your promoters about bringing me out west. I'd love to come out west and film one of the events out there. Love to get out and see all my friends in Alberta and Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and BC. Love to get out west again. But this year is pretty well done. I'm pretty booked solid, but hey, there's always next year. 2023 is wide open right now. I think the only commitments I have so far for 2023, the Canadian Nationals in Sydney, Cape Breton. Hope everybody across Canada can come and make that. The Nova Scotia Provincials, which will be held here in Nova Scotia, and the Atlantic Canadian Arm Wrestling Championships. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly what Rick has told me, his plan is to have those in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, once again, at the same venue that he had this past year in the 1st of April, and had a really successful Atlantics. I sent a couple of cameras with Angela McNamara and her husband, Rob, and she set them up and did a great job filming for me. So, but again, we're getting sidetracked from the 1988 Atlantic Coast Arm Wrestling Championships. As you can tell, I have no basic format or outline. We're just on here gabbing. It's probably much better when I have a guest. But anyway, final thank you to Sean Crowther. Super appreciate that. 6 people watching us and up to 4 likes. Love it. Thanks, guys. Okay, 1988 Atlantic Coast Arm Wrestling Championships. So Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling makes this plan, and we're going to put together a team. So Rick gave away a bunch of trips for us to go to and attend this in Virginia Beach. So it was great. So we fly from Halifax and have to make a connection in New York. So that's where it gets interesting. So we land in New York, wait for our connection, get on the plane. I go and sit in my assigned seat, and a gentleman in a suit walks up to us and says, "Excuse me, sir, we're going to have to ask you to change seats." And I'm going like, "This is the seat that I'm assigned. I honestly don't understand." And so he flashes a little badge and says, "We're escorting a guest." A code word for prisoner, I guess. They bring this guy on the plane in shackles and handcuffs, and they want an FBI officer on either side of him. I was more than happy to give up my seat and move. But it's just nothing like that has ever happened before to me. I had never heard of anything like that happening, and nothing has happened since in all the traveling I've done since then. But okay, so that's it. And we're on our way from New York City to Virginia Beach. Don't exactly remember where we landed in Virginia. And Rick and Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling had rented a van for us all to drive. So we get off the plane and we're driving to the hotel. Little sightseeing tour of Virginia Beach. Lo and behold, we find out a bunch of the streets are all named after Monopoly properties. There was Park Place and Boardwalk and Atlantic Gardens and all the classic Monopoly streets and districts. So I thought that was kind of wild, and never having been there before. And it was a beautiful place to be. And we were especially impressed with number one, the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. When you're driving on this bridge above the water, and as you're looking to where the direction you're going to, and the road just disappears. Well, it ends up going down underneath the ocean and to allow ships to still pass. So that was really impressive. And the naval base that we got to see in Virginia Beach was super impressive. Look, the U.S. Navy and the aircraft carriers. And there was a whack of a bunch of ships in port at the time, and it was really super impressive. So we get there. This is all the day before the tournament, and we're out to dinner, and we're touring around, and we're having a great time and lots of laughs. And so we go to bed that night, and we got the next morning. Well, that's when the nerves started for me. I was incredibly scared, just terrified. This is my first exposure to anything outside of Nova Scotia for arm wrestling. A moment. So I roomed with Rick Pinkney and Charlie Orston. So they went down. I don't remember if there was a restaurant in the hotel. Must have been. I think they went down for breakfast. I was too nervous. Stomach was all upset. So I ordered in room service. Room service comes. So I got about half my meal down, and then that was it. The rest of it is coming back up. I couldn't keep food down. I couldn't keep water down. I couldn't keep coffee down, anything. I was just a basket case. So I go down to the lobby when it's time for us to head to the venue and meet up with a few people. First time I met Gene Taddy, and the first words out of his mouth looking at Rick was, "So this is the referee?" And of course, I was probably 100 pounds lighter. I had all kinds of blonde hair. And so Rick says, "Yes, this is the referee." So Gene and I introduced ourselves to one another. Excuse me. And then we're off to the venue. I go to the venue. I started looking around the room. I don't recognize a whole lot of people. I do recognize a few. But as I said, it's my first trip outside of Nova Scotia for arm wrestling. So I get introduced to the referee. Steve Stanaway is the head referee. That's where I first met. I met Steve Stanaway, met IAF president, I believe he is, Bill Cox. Met him for the first time, and met Karen Bean for the first time. although she doesn't remember the fact that we met in 1988. But on video, we're both at the same tournament, and I think we even refereed at the same table. But that was the first time I met Karen, and I don't remember meeting Frank there, so maybe Frank was. It may have been one of the times that I attended events that Frank was out to sea. He's the engineer on a merchant marine ship, so he may not have actually even been there. But I don't remember meeting Frank. I do remember meeting Karen. As I said, she doesn't remember meeting me, so I obviously didn't make that much of an impression on Karen. Although, and funny enough, Bill Cox didn't remember meeting me there as well either, until I actually showed a video. He said, "Oh yeah, you were there." Well, yes, sir, I was there. So then, before the tournament started, I got introduced to a bunch of arm wrestlers. Just bear with me a second. I want to give you a little rundown of some of the people I first got to meet there. So Ray Taglione was there, Leslie Wims, Paul Cicchini from Canada, Norm Devio, Ron Bath was there. Look, I refereed Ron Bath in the finals. That's where I first met Ron Bath as well. He probably doesn't remember this either. I'm just some other punk ass kid referee. He's probably seen us, 100 of us. But I was super impressed with Ron Bath. He was so easy to set up at the table. Just the ultimate professional. Had a lot of respect for watching Ron Bath at the time. Knew of his name, did not know him. Knew of his name before I got there. So I was kind of thrilled to meet him. So Ron Bath, first got to meet Canadian heavyweight legend Rick Barbet. That's where I first met Rick Barbet, and we've been friends ever since. Rick Barbet was back in the day. He was the pinnacle of heavyweights in Canadian arm wrestling. And then, of course, along comes Gary Goodrich, who was at this tournament as well, battled Rick Barbet in the finals, if I'm remembering correctly. And this was the beginning of Gary's reign for the Canadian heavyweights. So Rick Barbet, as I said, I met Karen Bean. Dave Patton was there. Dave Patton was amazing to watch. Everything I had heard about him was all true. He was a lot of fun to watch. Just a great arm wrestler. So that was my first exposure to him as well. Gary Goodrich, as I mentioned already. Gabe Accardi from New England was there, another great puller. Andrew Cobra Rhodes. I can't forget Andrew Rhodes. Put on a great show, the Cobra did. And it's always fun to watch Cobra. And he really does put on a show. It's just a great arm wrestler. And I've heard him say before, back in the day, the late 80s and 90s, he was playing chess and everybody else seemed to be playing checkers. And he was so great at the table. So Cobra Rhodes, George Givens was there, just a super powerful arm wrestler. Great to watch him. And I remember him being in the finals and somebody's saying that he's touching his shoulder. And he had the presence of mind to sit just where he was and talk back to hecklers in the crowd. He was feeling pretty confident. He won his weight class. It was great. Who else did I get to see? Kevin Kelly, another super great puller out of Ontario in Canada. And just sidetrack, just spent a few hours talking with Kevin Kelly just a few weeks ago when Rick Pinkney and I traveled to Prince Edward Island, and Kevin was there as well. And Hall of Fame arm wrestler, world champion, Canadian champion, refereed for a long time. Super great guy, super knowledgeable about arm wrestling, and it was great to relive and hash over some of the things that we got to discuss, and the personalities and the talent pool of guys that coming out of Canada in the 80s and early 90s that a lot of pullers today don't really even know. And look, folks, if the people you don't know, if you want to drop me a line, I can point you to videos in the right direction. Some of these people you really need to learn about and see. I did a series of 12 videos called the Legends series. And if nothing else, just check out the Legends. Not because I'm looking for the views or anything. I've started posting them on Facebook, just because I think these pullers need, not that they need the exposure, I think they deserve the exposure. And we need to keep pushing the history of arm wrestling forward. And I see like Eric Rosen is in the chat. Eric is doing a truly amazing job with the Arm Wrestling Archives. And I love what he's doing now with his daily updates of what happened in the past in arm wrestling. Just a phenomenal job, and maybe one of the single most knowledgeable experts of our arm wrestling history. So thanks for that, Eric. You're doing an amazing job, and we love it. Let's see. I saw he was in the chat. The Atlantic Coast Championships ran for 20 years between the 70s and 90s. The 88 contest was the most stacked tournament of them all. So you chose a good year today ever. When Rick decided, it was a well-known tournament, and Rick decided this was the one that he thought we should attend. Brought a really good team from Nova Scotia. Great experience for all the pullers. I had an amazing time as a referee and watching some of these guys. Okay, so I left off with Kevin Kelly. Paul Levesque from Canada was there. Jim Northern from the U.S. I watched Jim Northern a few times attending Atlantic Coast Championships, some AAA nationals that I got to go down and cover for Karen and Frank Bean. And Jim Northern was a beast as well back in his days. It was a lot of fun to watch some of these guys I only ever heard about. And that's the very first time I got to see in person Richard Lepke's. Unbelievable guy. I don't recall meeting him there, but I do recall watching him, and the size of him and his strength and speed were just unbelievable. So a huge treat for me from Halifax, Nova Scotia. Had never been anywhere in the arm wrestling world before, but for me to get to go and meet and watch some of these legendary pullers was just a huge thrill. Forever indebted to Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling and Rick Pinkney for putting me on this path that ended up being such a huge part of my life. So anyway, the tournament is finally going to start. So Steve Stanaway has a referee meeting, and of course I'm the face that nobody knows, so they have no idea if my refereeing is any good, if I know anything. But we have a meeting and we start. And my very first match, I think I was more scared doing that than I was when I got married. It was just crazy, the intimidation factor for me. In Nova Scotia, when I first started, I was nervous in that, but in Nova Scotia, it wasn't that big of a deal. You just come, you do your thing, you make calls. Some are good, some are bad. What it seemed to happen, if you watched Rick Pinkney and I, what seemed to happen is I'd make a call and he would take the grief for it. So I thought, well, if this is as bad as it's going to get, I can go anywhere and referee anywhere. Oh, no. This was a totally different game. This was real arm wrestling, and compared to what we did in Nova Scotia, which just seemed like it was amateur classes. It were novice classes, for lack of a better word. It's just these were big arm wrestlers, and this was still a few years before the Europeans really stepped up their game and really started to come on into the sport of arm wrestling. So it was North Americans, we had big names from Canada, as I said, big names from the U.S., and this was going to be a great show. So we start. I think I screwed up my first couple of matches, not with bad calls, just the nerves, and it was taking me too long to get matches going. Trying to get that perfect setup that doesn't exist. I think my philosophy as a referee then, and still remains to this day, is my job as a referee to get that match started as fair as I possibly can. There's no such thing as the perfect start. It just doesn't exist. Try and get both guys as square as we can. Try and get the wrists straight and still in the center of the table as we can, and let's get them going. And let the arm wrestlers decide. part of my philosophy is I'm not part of the show. I'm just there to make sure that it's fair. That's all. Once it's go, as long as these guys are pulling fairly and everything's okay, let them go and pull. For me, and I believe more than some other referees, that let's let the arm wrestlers decide. And if they slip out, let's just put them in the straps. As long as it's not a glaring Buddy Bales to get out, or it's not a slip out in the losing position. It's any foul in a losing position it ends up being a loss. But if at all possible, let's just strap them up and get them going. Now we see pullers today are trying to treat the strap as a reward, and they're trying to go for it right away. Back in the 80s, I didn't look at it that way, and we did not look at it. It wasn't a reward for anything. And this particular day, I used the straps a little bit, and not a whole lot of referee scripts though. That's what really surprised me a lot. I thought that at this caliber there would be some more referee scripts than there was, but it was a different game at a different time back then. I don't know if it was better or worse, but it was just different. There wasn't as much playing around on the setup as there seems to be in today's arm wrestling game. That's not a criticism. That's just, look, maybe all the arm wrestlers are better now. Who knows, and who's to say? But back then, there didn't seem to be as many referee scripts. There was still a fair amount of slip outs. But again, going to the strap was not a reward. And so now the arm wrestlers today are a little bit fussier about how they want the strap on. Back then, you didn't have any choice. You got to choose if you wanted that as high up on the wrist as we would allow, or as low on the wrist as we would allow. And that's it. There was nothing else. It wasn't a reward for you slipping out. Okay, this is just to make sure you don't slip out again. You're going to play my game with my rules. And it just seems to be treated differently now than it was then. As I said, I'm not making a judgment. It's not better or worse. We have some great pullers today. We had some great pullers back then. For me, it's all fun. I love watching a good match. We have some amazing pullers today, but some of the legends that I named off already. We have had some amazing pullers back then, and I was thrilled that I got a chance to go and not just watch with them, but participate on the stage with some of these guys. So anyway, back to the tournament. So we're moving along, and things are happening, and we're going to straps, and then something happens at another table that I'm not refereeing on. We did this rotation, so you're at one table for a bit, as the head ref, and then you're down to the downside ref, and you move to the next table. So I just finished making my rotation, and there was a Canadian that got called to the table I was just on and just moved from. So he slips out, and he was given a loss for whatever happened. I don't really know what happened at the table. And all I could hear was him start yelling, well, let's leave the Canadian referee on the table. At least he's fair and he gives us the straps, type of thing. And I'm going, wow. And apparently it was going around the room that if you're going to slip out, I was the guy that was probably going to put you in the straps and not call a win or loss. But I just made calls based on the rule set that I had. And look, like I said, I want the arm wrestlers to decide this. As a referee, I was not part of the show. I'm just there to get things started as fairly as I possibly can. And that's what I did, to the best of my ability. So we go on and on and on, and it's a long and tiring day. Some great arm wrestle matches happened. Some things I really liked, some things I didn't really like, but so we get down to the finals. And we're doing our rotations, and everything's working fine. And I got paired with Bill Cox, and it was one of the women classes, and we're in the finals. And I don't want to over exaggerate or anything. So right-handed, so the women are hitting. I'm gonna make sure you can see my elbows. And the girl was on the winning side, and she did one of these to drive her opponent down. So, I call elbow foul, and Bill Cox calls win. So we're having a discussion, and he's saying, no, it's a win. I'm saying, but Bill, she lifted her elbow off the pad to get the pin. I said, so, and it happened long before the pin. I called an elbow foul. This is what we're going to do. So over comes Steve Stanaway. So, of course, he knows Bill Cox, and Bill Cox was a very experienced referee. They don't know me at all, and they don't know if I have experience, if I know what I'm talking about. They have no idea. So I got overruled. And removed from the table. And I thought, wow, okay. That was the last match, and I'm leaving like this. And I'm thinking, okay, these guys are all just going to think now I'm just a friggin' joke and an ass. But look, it was an elbow foul, and I didn't want to see somebody lose in the championship round like that. Like, come on. I'm not saying there was a fix-in. I'm not saying anything else. I just called what I saw. I ended up getting overruled by the head referee of the day, and that was my last tournament. And I wonder if did it hurt my feelings? I don't know if it hurt my feelings. It kind of pissed me off that they didn't believe what I'm saying I saw. And then to be removed, I'm just going, and all I could think of at the time was, okay, fine, just pay me my money, and I'll go away. And now since then, like no grudges or anything. I've met Steve Stanaway a couple times. We've never talked about that. There's no point. It happened. It's one call in however many matches I got to referee. No big deal. Bill Cox and I became fairly good friends after this. We've never talked about that call again. I don't see any real reason to bring it up. No big deal. But it was my first real exposure to big time arm wrestling outside of Nova Scotia and Atlantic Canada. Was going to Virginia Beach. I went to Virginia Beach before I went to my first Canadian Nationals, and to meet some of the people and watch them arm wrestle was just a huge thrill to me. Something I'll never forget that trip. It was my first arm wrestling trip really away, other than things that we had done here in the Maritimes or Atlantic Canada. Really the Maritimes, because I've never been to Newfoundland for arm wrestling at all. But this was an amazing trip, amazing tournament. As Eric already posted out, that it was a big tournament for 20 years between the 70s and 90s. And that one particular year that I went happened to be the most stacked tournament of all the ones that they held there. And this was great. And what really struck me, again, as a fairly new guy coming in, was how great the reception was from everybody that I got to deal with. And everybody was just very accepting and offering to help. And I can remember I made a call, and the arm wrestler comes up and he shakes my hand and says, "That's okay. We understand you're new and you're from Canada." Going like, what's that got to do with anything? You end up losing the match. He's going, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to hold it against you though." Well, okay, you elbow fouled out of the match. Has nothing to do with me or being from Canada. But as I said, it was a truly remarkable experience. I had a great time. And that's it for 1988 Atlantic Coast Arm Wrestling Championships off the top of my head. Like I said, an amazing tournament. We had a great time. The only other thing I wanted to touch on tonight was there seems to be a whole lot of talk about this match that Uncle John Thompson had at Arm Wars. So I saw the match. I don't think I watched a couple of reaction videos. I watched John's reaction video. But if I was going to critique John in a video, I don't think I would start it off by saying John is a very good friend of mine. But like, really? So you're going to say that John is a good friend of yours, and then you're going to bash him for the next however long your video is, 12, 15 minutes. And I'm not picking on anybody in particular. I watched that a few times because he's a very good friend of mine. But, well, either he's a good friend of yours or he isn't. Heat of the moment, sometimes things happen at the table. Do I think John was trying to intentionally hurt somebody? No, I do not. I do not. I've known John for a few years now. but the heat of the moment, things could happen. And as he's clearly stated to everybody, him and his opponent are fine, right? They've talked since then. They talked at the time, and everything is fine. And so Neil Pickup has just released another video with John and him, and hell of a match, great stuff. I really don't see the issue, and he's seems to have taken an awful lot of abuse and some serious ass whoopings over this match and what happened. I have seen worse. I have seen worse at the table. But so to crucify John for something that happened when somebody's trying to run and John's trying to chase them, and that's you know what, that's really all I have to say about that. But folks, for the folks that are tuned in and watching, if you have any questions, shoot them to me, because I don't have much more. And hopefully I'll get some guests lined up in the next few weeks for us to really have some good discussions. I'd like to bring Rick Pinkney back in again. And we left off right around 93, 94 from the Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling Association and the history of Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling. In 1994, Rick Pinkney and Nova Scotia Arm Wrestling hosted their first Canadian Nationals here in Halifax, Nova Scotia. So I want to pick up with Rick on that, and then where we went to that. And at the same time, in 1994 was basically, I was just getting back into arm wrestling after taking some time off when my wife and I were having our first child, and having our only child, actually. My current wife and I are our only child, and the two of them were a little bit sickly, so I had to take some time off, and ultimately ended up staying home with our daughter for the first year, and became a Mr. Mom, stay-at-home dad for a year. And then I think it was 93 into 94, I started coming back into arm wrestling, and that's where I started training with Rick a lot more, and started trying to turn myself into an arm wrestler. If I was successful or not, I have no idea. But as I said, I got struck down. Just as I was really beginning to learn how to use my hand and whatever strength I had built, I got struck down with a heart attack. And that was the end of arm wrestling, my arm wrestling on the table career for me. But if you have nothing else, that's been about 45 minutes, and I'm gonna wrap it up from there. I don't know if this is what anybody had in mind for. It was suggested to me about telling a few stories. Thanks for your input, Eric. Thank you again to Sean Crowther for the super chat. Super appreciate that. Southpaw Jinx, thanks for your kind words. Once again, big shout out to Joe Fox. Hopefully, Joe, we will run into each other again soon. I just met Joe for the very first time while I was out in Winnipeg covering the Canadian Nationals. It was a pleasure to meet and chat with him. And as I said, in his weight class, I think he's the man in Canada right now. But that remains to be seen. I know there's matches that he would still like to line up, and there's people that are probably looking to have a match with Joe as well. But he was super impressive at the Canadian Nationals, and everything I've seen of him on videotape, I've been super impressed with him, and really came across to me as a super down-to-earth guy, super nice guy. It was great having a chance to talk with you, Joe. Appreciated that. And as I said, look me up, hook me up, get me geared up to go to West, just so I can see and meet lots more arm wrestlers out West. I'd love to travel out there, and that's all I have. I appreciate everybody tuning in and spending some time with me. And right now, I'll be back again next Sunday, and hopefully I'll have a guest or two lined up. I do have guests lined up that have agreed to come on. As I said a couple weeks ago when Rick and I were on, I don't want to really do the Zoom calls. I think there's enough people out there doing a pretty bang up job on that. I want to talk to people one-on-one in person. Hopefully they can make it here to our studios here at our condo in Halifax. Today, now we're just coming to you from my office with the webcam because the camera wasn't working properly. So And if you're interested in having us come to your event, just for friends on Facebook, just drop me a note, you know what, or leave me a message on my YouTube channel. Anything like that will work well, and we can probably work out a deal. But that's all I have for you tonight, folks. I appreciate you all tuning in. And until next time, I'm Scott McGinnis. Take care.